The first flakes of ice fell quietly over Denver, Colorado, glimmering beneath the streetlights like pieces of broken glass. The city had been warned about the rare winter storm, but few believed it would strike with such force. By midnight, the world had turned to silver and silence, except for the howling wind that cut through the empty streets. At the edge of the city, near a small park surrounded by tall pine trees, Ethan Cole, a single veteran, sat quietly inside his modest pickup truck. His life had become a rhythm of solitude, morning jogs, volunteer shifts at the animal shelter, and long evenings remembering faces from the past. Faces that once shared battlefields and courage, but now lived only in his memories. He had left the army years ago, carrying the invisible weight of those who didn't come home. Yet even in his silence, there was kindness. Every week, Ethan left care packages near shelters, bought coffee for strangers, and quietly repaired old playground swings for neighborhood kids. That night, he had stopped by Willow Creek Park to check on stray dogs he often fed. As the storm thickened, he turned his headlights toward the frozen pathway. But what he saw next made his heart slam against his chest. A yellow school bus, sliding out of control, skidded across the icy road. It crashed through the wooden fence and plunged halfway into the frozen pond. The sound of splintering ice echoed through the still air. For a moment, everything stopped. Then, screams. Ethan threw open his door, boots crunching through ice. "Oh my God," he breathed. Inside the bus, he could see 4 small children trapped at the back, pounding on the foggy windows. The driver was motionless. The bus tilted dangerously, the rear sinking lower every second. He ran toward it, wine slicing his face, his breath white in the air. No one else was around. The storm had emptied the streets. No help, no sound of sirens, only Ethan, and the cold. He reached the edge of the pond. The ice beneath his boots groaned. "Stay calm, kids," he shouted. "I'm coming." But his voice was lost in the wind. With trembling hands, he pulled a rope and crowbar from his truck. The bitter wind bit into his skin as he crawled across the cracking ice. He could hear the bus engine still humming faintly under the water. His heartbeat thudded in his ears. He smashed a side window. One at a time, he ordered gently. A boy, maybe 8 years old, was the first to climb toward him, face streaked with tears. Ethan pulled him out and slid him toward the edge of the pond, whispering, "Crawl, don't stand. You're safe." Behind him, the bus creaked louder. It was sinking faster now. He could see the other 3 children still trapped inside. He knew time was slipping away. Ethan's muscles screamed as he pulled open the emergency door, water rushing out like shards of glass. The icy pond numbed his legs instantly, but he didn't stop. His breath came in ragged gasps, but his mind stayed steady, just like during the old missions where panic meant death. "Come on, sweetheart," he urged, helping a little girl with pink gloves out through the door. Her eyes were wide with shock. "Hold on to me." He tied the rope around her waist and pulled her toward safety. The storm's fury grew stronger. Trees bent under the weight of ice, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. On the roadside above the park, cars had begun to stop. People stepped out, frozen in disbelief. One shouted into his phone for help. Another ran toward the pond but slipped and fell. Ethan looked back once. The bus was now almost submerged. Only a few windows were visible above the waterline. Inside, 2 children were still trapped, a small boy and an older girl clutching him tightly. "Please," she cried through the glass. Ethan slammed his crowbar against the window again and again until it shattered. Freezing water burst through, pushing him backward, but he lunged forward, grabbing both children by their arms. The weight of the soaked kids nearly dragged him under. For a terrifying second, the world went silent except for the sound of bubbles. But then, his training, his purpose, kicked in. He pushed upward, breaking the surface with a desperate gasp. "Hold on," he shouted, voice cracking. He tied the rope around the last boy's body and began crawling back. But the ice beneath them groaned dangerously, spiderweb cracks spreading. He could see headlights in the distance, an approaching helicopter from the rescue team, but it was still too far. "Don't look down," he whispered to the children. "Just breathe." Inch by inch, he dragged them toward the solid ice. Behind them, the bus disappeared under the water with a deep, echoing roar. When they finally reached the edge, several bystanders rushed forward, pulling the children to safety. Paramedics were arriving, slipping on the frozen ground, carrying blankets and stretchers. Ethan collapsed on his knees, shaking violently. His hands were blue from cold, but he smiled weakly as he heard the children's cries turn into sobs of relief. "Sir, are you okay?" one medic asked, wrapping a blanket around him. Ethan nodded faintly. His body trembled, but his eyes stayed fixed on the children being carried toward the ambulance. In that moment, he didn't feel like a hero. He just felt grateful. Grateful that he was in the right place, at the right time, to do something good again. The helicopter hovered overhead, spotlight shining over the shattered ice like a celestial blessing. The city's traffic had stopped completely. Dozens of people watched in silence, their breath visible in the cold air, as one man alone had done what 30 others could not. The next morning, the storm had passed. The city glistened beneath a soft golden sun, every tree coated in crystal ice. News cameras surrounded the park. Reporters called it the miracle at Willow Creek. But Ethan Cole stayed quiet. He refused interviews and slipped away before dawn. He visited the hospital quietly that afternoon, carrying small teddy bears for the 4 children he had saved: Liam, Grace, Tyler, and little Emma. Their parents hugged him through tears. "You saved our babies," one mother whispered, trembling. Ethan only smiled. "They saved me too," he replied softly. That evening, he walked through the park again. The broken fence was gone, replaced by flowers and thank you notes from families and neighbors. Snow glittered under the streetlights. The sound of children's laughter returned to the playground. As he stood by the pond, he looked up at the clear winter sky. For years, Ethan had wondered why he was still here, why fate had spared him when so many of his brothers in arms had not. That night, he finally understood. Sometimes, life keeps you for a reason, to remind the world that kindness still lives quietly among us. He whispered to the cold air, "Maybe this was my mission all along." A gentle wind stirred, carrying his words away like a promise. Dear viewers, sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms or wait for applause. Sometimes, they live quietly among us, ready to act when kindness calls. Ethan's courage reminds us that one person's compassion can change the world, even in the coldest moments. If this story touched your heart, please comment your thoughts below, share what kindness means to you. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel Kindness Quest so we can continue spreading stories that warm the soul and inspire the world. Because one act of kindness can melt even the hardest ice.